Hey, chemistry peeps. Today we're going to take a little detour. I think I had promised you 3 lab shifts that help improve student learning today, but this week I'm actually planning my lessons for the first day of my classes. And so I thought that this episode might be more helpful since my first day is coming up, and I'm assuming that your first day is coming up really soon. So today we're going to talk about this activity that I've done for about the last 7 years in my chemistry class. It's really interactive. It gets the students moving and sets the tone for the year. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's be honest, most first day activities are passive and they're pretty boring. So I don't like to go over the syllabus or the rules on the first day. I do this activity called Models in Science. And so this helps students learn that chemistry is interactive, that we're going to be doing science even on day one, that our activities and labs are going to require teamwork, safety, and for them to be responsible and on task. This is a great activity to set community. And then it also has the NGSS science practices in it as it focuses on models. So biology has an opportunity to talk a lot about the nature of science just throughout the curriculum. But one thing I think we don't talk about enough in biology is models and why models are helpful. And in chemistry, by the time students get to chemistry, they have seen a lot of different models. And since we use models throughout the class, and specifically the atomic model, and we show how it changes, I really want to teach students how we use these models, how are they created, why can they change, when they change, all those kind of basic things that they should know about. And I also like to include some real world events about climate change, COVID-19, stronger storms that we've had, just so we can show how scientific knowledge evolves over time. So let me get into the meat of the activity. So the first thing that I always like to start off with on day one is have the students create call cards. And you're like, what's a call card? Some teachers use popsicle sticks, maybe with student numbers on it or student names. So when they're having a discussion in the class and maybe students aren't answering, they can just pull a student's popsicle stick with a student's name on it, and then they'll ask that student the question. So that's something that I use in my class, but not popsicle sticks. I use it with these call cards. So when students walk into the room, they go ahead, they grab this index card out of the basket. On their index cards, I write down different words. And so before I even started this activity, I have grouped or made groups of like car models. So one set of cards might say Ford, Chevy, Toyota, and Tesla on it. Another set of cards might be like presidents, like Ford, Washington, Obama, and Bush. Some of the terms are going to be a little ambiguous. So a second ago, I gave you the car example, and then the other group was presidents. Well, Ford could technically go on either one of those lists. So there are a few words that are going to help us spark some discussion. Once the kids walk in, they grab these cards. And then on the board, I have our warm-up question written. And in my class, I always like to start every day with a warm-up question. So this really sets the tone from day one. So on the blank side of the note card that they just picked up, they're going to write down their name, any nicknames they have, any activities like at school that they're participating in. Do they work? Do they have any home responsibilities? And then I also have them write down if they have a 504, an IEP, or any allergies that I should know about. And I like to do this on day one, and the students get to hold on to their cards the whole period. I collect them by hand at the end. I like to do this on day one because sometimes I don't get access to this information until like later in the week or even the second week of school. So I've had some students before that need to be escorted to the nurse when they're feeling shaky or tired because they need to get a snack. And if I don't know that on day one, they come up to me in the middle of the class and I'm not sure what they're asking about. So then as they're filling out their cards, I'll go ahead, I'll welcome them to class, I'll introduce myself by using this call card example. So I'll be like, hi, my name is Mrs. Semino. It's kind of a weird name, so I have the kids say it out loud. I actually spell it out phonetically for them. I tell them that I'm allergic to students being off task as kind of a joke, And then I really think that they should know that I love Dr. Pepper and chocolate. I just try to make it fun and interactive. Then after I introduce myself, I'll go ahead, I'll take a few questions if anybody needs help filling out their cards. Then I'll tell the students that we're going to be doing a group activity, and a lot of them are pleasantly surprised by this fact. I'll tell the students that in a minute they're going to get up and they're going to get into groups of 3 to 5 students. And the way that they are going to group themselves is because they're going to have a word on their card that's going to be similar. I like to use the example of books on the Google Slides. I have different book names. So like To Kill a Mockingbird, The Great Gatsby. And so the idea is that then if you had a book title, you would be in a... So then I'll let the kids get up from their seats. I actually let them struggle for a minute or two to find their groups. But once I see that maybe some kids are having a hard time, I won't automatically say, hey, you're in that group. I'll start asking the student questions like, when you say Ford, what does that make you think of? And then they, I help them look around the room, and then they usually are able to figure out what group they should be. And what's really awesome, sometimes other students will overhear our conversation and will be like, hey, dude, you should come over here and be in our group. So now once the students are in groups of 3 to 5 students, I have one student from each group go and grab a whiteboard, a marker, a dry erase marker. Make sure you stress that that's the only thing they should be using on the whiteboards, and an eraser. And on a side note, I just want to let you guys know, I have 2x2 whiteboards, and I bought, I think they're called like shower tile boards. I went to Lowe's one time and I bought like some really big pieces of the shower tile board, and I had them cut into about these 2x2 whiteboards. They've lasted me a really long time, and I really like how big they are because students can then do like stoichiometry or those really big math problems, or even like mind mapping and stuff on there. Those were cheaper than buying real fancy whiteboards. So sorry, side note, I love those things. So I would highly recommend those. So anyways, once they get into their groups, they grab the whiteboard, the eraser, and the dry erase marker. They go ahead, they look at the terms that their group has on the cards, and then I'll ask them to classify or come up with like an overarching title that they would use to describe the terms there. So this is a great way to start off by classifying things. So the students will write the overarching title down, put a line, like underline it, and then underneath it, they'll go ahead and they'll list what was on each of their cards. And at this point, I've gotten all of the groups to stand around the outside of my classroom, and then you're going to face in. So we have like a really large circle going in class. Once they're done, they'll hold up their whiteboards so everybody in class can see the whiteboards. The next thing we do is we start to discuss. I'll ask each group to look around at the other group's whiteboards and see if any terms maybe seem out of place, or if there was like any descriptive labels that they could have changed. And what often pops up, and I'm just keep using this example, are things like Ford. So like Ford could be a president, it could be in the president group, or it could be in the car group. Washington could be on the president board, or it can be on the states boards. But my favorite one when kids notice is Pluto. So one of my groups that I have are Disney characters, and then one are planets. So sometimes Pluto gets put on the planets one, and then somebody will be like, hey, I don't think Pluto's a planet anymore. And then this is a great opportunity to talk about, why did this change? Like, why is Pluto not classified as a standard planet anymore? So we talk a little bit about how these models evolve. And then we also do talk about, like, if you're not sure about Ford, which board or which group it should be in, how do we know which group it should be in? And the kids are usually pretty good about this. They're like, well, we want to know some more information. Was it a person or is it a vehicle? So this idea about getting more information can change models and help improve the efficacy of these models. So those are some key points that I like to talk about. And on the Google Slides presentation, we talk about why models are helpful, why they're not perfect, and then again, the thing that I'm stressing here is how can models change over time. And we mentioned the idea about COVID-19, about how the prediction about the number of people that were going to die was pretty small, but then the numbers kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's because we kept getting more information. And one last thing I want to mention, we also discuss about how models can be on paper, like a water cycle model. They can be mental models, like things we just have in our brain. They can be computer models. So sometimes we'll talk about those weather models, like that you see like on the evening news. We'll also talk about how they can be physical models. Usually in biology, they'll make like a model of a cell or something like that. And so we just talk about how models can come in different forms as well. And then we'll sometimes talk about how we use models, not just in science, but in other areas of our life. So for example, like the stock market, financial predictions, if you want to fix something, how you might look at a picture in a handbook to fix it. So there's other areas in our daily life that we are using these models. Now at this point, we generally have about 10 or 15 minutes left, and we reinforce those key ideas about how models are made, what do we use them for, and why models can change. Then I just have some important information to tell the students. So usually that's, I go over the lunch schedule, some basic supplies that they're going to need for the class. We review about my expectations about how they entered the class, what did I encourage them and ask them to do, and then we'll talk about how we exit the class. So I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I'll have a timer, whoever's closest to the clock be my timer. They'll tell me 3 minutes beforehand. I'll wrap up class, and then once I'm done talking, then students can pack up for the day. So I think it's like a really cool day. The students get to know me, they get to know their expectations, they get to know each other, they're learning the importance of models, why we use them, how they can change, and like why they would change. And I think we probably say because we get more information like 15 times in that lesson. Then, like I said, it also helps me start off with those call cards. I'll collect them before they walk out the door. I'll look them over to see if there was any important information on there. Like, does a student have the ability to use the restroom whenever they need to? Do they have a pressure pass to see the counselor whenever they need to? So I don't want to embarrass them or take more time in future lessons if they are making requests for those accommodations. So that's why I really like those. And of course, this idea that we're thinking like scientists from day one. Can you make this activity yourself? Yes. You definitely can make this activity on your own. But I do want to let you know, if you wanted to save some time, I have this full resource available on my TPT shop, and it has editable slides. It has the list of the groups already made for you. It has teacher instructions. And then the second day of class, when students come back in, we have a handout that we complete. And in that product, I have the handout that the students would then finish so we can review that day one activity. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Confident Chemistry Teacher podcast. If you try this activity or if you put your own spin on it, I'd love to know about it. So make sure that you're DMing me on Instagram or email me, and I'll put both of those in the show notes. I do want to mention, if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover for a future episode, again, send me a message and let me know. But until next time, you guys, I'm wishing you a happy first day. So until next time, keep inspiring, keep experimenting, and keep making your classroom way more awesome. And I really do wish all of you guys an amazing first week of school. Happy teaching.